Eldridge from Maine Cabin Masters. We're so excited that you were able to join us today.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, first question, what made you interested in connecting with NAMI Maine and discussing mental health?
As I've gotten older and as times have changed, I've really realized how important mental health is. I believe that, in my 40s, like halfway through, you grow up and you work hard and you're young and you're tough, and there was some stimulus behind it, and then as I got in my 40s, I realized, mental health is very important. I think when you're younger, you're stronger physically and maybe mentally, and you can overcome some things or maybe not think about them. But as you get older and you start to reflect and you have a different perspective on things, it kind of becomes apparent that mental health is really important.
Yeah. So you're very fortunate to have a very unique environment that you get to work in. How many months of the year do you actually work outside?
Every month.
Every month.
Every month. As the show has gotten more popular, they film as much as we can all the time. The first couple of years, it was, typical, Maine construction. We'd work 9 months out of the year, and around New Year's, we would take some time off, go skiing, or just start doing estimates and bids for the next summer. But we're so busy now, they want as much content as they can get.
So how do you feel that being outside, being near water, being by more nature, do you feel that helps you kind of de-stress or cope differently than before you were working outside?
100%. I believe a big proponent of being in nature, and when you're stressed out, just getting outside. About 2 years ago, I got my new dog. I've always had dogs, but my last dog, Gus, gravitated towards my wife. And I have a big diesel truck. We live a mile down the road. I would come in that big truck, dogs wouldn't move. And then Ashley would be in her car 2 miles away and they'd be up. So those were her dogs, and I got Trigger about 2 years ago when things were getting overwhelming and I was working too much and I wasn't doing things I used to love, and he got me back outside. I used to love when I was younger and hiked all the time and snowboarded all the time. And one thing I've realized is, we have one chance with the TV show, but I need to get back to doing things like more things outside that really calmed me down and helped me out. And getting a new dog was a big step in that.
He's a cutie.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy.
I love that you say that, because in our programming, we often ask people to think about what are the things that you tap into that support your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think of those things that support our physical health, also support our mental health, right? Getting outside, fresh air, sunshine, moving our bodies. And so when we ask people that, most of the time they mention nature is one of those things that they tap into. So I love that.
I think also though right now, I love Maine. We all love Maine because of the seasons, but right now it's stressing our mental health a little bit. With climate change and winter ending abruptly, maybe a month or two early, these long springs and mud season, there's times where when you're like, oh God, I need to see the sun, and even just getting outside, even if it's not nice, that helps out.
Yeah, I'm a transplant from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I'm finding out what mud season really is. And
How
one
long
of the
is it?
reasons I started watching your show was because it was teaching me all the beautiful places in Maine.
We're so lucky.
And so lucky. Yeah. So did you want to add anything to your last question?
Well, I just, when we're talking about nature, what are some specific coping things that you use in nature? Are there trails that you go to, or you mentioned your dogs? What are some things you like to do?
Well, in the summertime when we're so busy, I love Cobbessy Lake. I grew up there, and it's amazing to me. I can be so stressed out, and I've been lucky enough to have my family property there. I don't care how bad my day was. If I go and get in that boat with my dog, put on some music for half an hour, it just changes everything.
Yeah.
And it could be a paddleboard, it could be a canoe, it could even be just a walk. Even the other day, I was just having a rough day, and I found myself over at the Monmouth boat landing with him at 7 a.m, just taking it in. Summer's coming, it's gonna be okay. It's been a long winter, a long mud season.
Yeah.
But just being there, sometimes I don't do enough, but just going to your happy places. And now I'm like, there's so many cool places around here. There's the Resin Hollow you can go to. There's Jamie's Pond. There's the boat launches. There's trails out. There's trails everywhere. There's a rail trail walk that goes right by here.
Yeah. So it kind of leads me into my next question. So when you need to blow off steam, what do you do?
Well, sometimes go down to the wood shop. Sometimes, go out with the dog. Just I need to. as things have gotten busier, I need to spend more time and go back to what I used to like.
And find a different routine again.
It's a work-life balance. That's the one thing about being in Italy was so amazing because we were over there for a whole winter, and I thought I was gonna have a hard time with it, because I'm go. I have a little bit of ADHD, and I thought I was gonna have a hard time stopping for 2 hours at lunch, but you get used to it, the culture, and there's something to be said about that, and trying to slow down a little bit.
The re-entry back here probably was challenging because then everything started back up again.
It was, and interesting thing is, as we've gotten more popular, as a restaurant gets really popular, the head chef doesn't cook on the line anymore. The sous chef does that, and he's doing bills and all that. And that's kind of, I feel like, how Chase and I are. We don't swing our hammers as much as we used to. And I think that is our happy place. And I've kind of come to terms with that's not going to be every day anymore. So now when I'm at the office and I'm inside, I got to go down to the wood shop more, and I got to take the trigger out and find a trail at lunchtime and, stay active and do that thing for my mental health.
Yeah. Well, you're so fortunate to be able to bring your dog to work every day.
Yeah, oh God, so lucky.
Yeah, so,
you had mentioned earlier, later in life, it kind of brought up the importance of mental health, and you have such a large platform. Mm-hmm. Do you feel a sense of, modeling those healthy things for your viewers?
I feel like, I feel like I've always been open, just turned 50, I just had a colonoscopy, I put that on, prostate stuff runs in my family, cancer runs in my family. I think if we can help one person, it's amazing. And I just reading about the new Red Sox documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you guys heard about that. It was about last year's season. Jaron Duran, one of the number one guys coming up, a young player. There's a whole episode on him and his mental health. And I just read an article on how people in New England are seeing it's helping young kids talk about it more. He talks about a year or two ago, he was in a bad spot, had a gun, didn't go off, and he's brave enough to bring that out, and it's really reaching people. So for people like him that can reach the world and answer the platform, I think it's good to be honest with yourself to others, because it does. Hearing that.
Yeah.
I have a great story about, a young kid who I met came up to me and went out of his way, and now he's considered a good friend. We keep in touch, and he just wrote me this letter once that really teared me up. He's like, Ryan, I appreciate you, because I was a big heavy kid, when I was little. He's like, I appreciate you being honest about that. It gave me confidence. And hearing that letter from him is probably the best thing that's ever happened in the show, because growing up's tough. Being a little kid's tough.
Yeah. Which kind of leads me to my next question. Great segue. So usually construction and working outside and the work that you do is seen as more male dominated and more of a tough guy type.
Not anymore.
But you have the opportunity, and you're doing that. You're starting to share more of your personal story and those opportunities to educate people in ways maybe that you didn't think of. Yeah,
exactly. And I have so many stories lately of women kicking butt in the construction industry. Yes, it's awesome. It's been great to see how Ashley's empowered people, through her part of the show. And then Sarah Dosty's been a carpenter of ours for almost 5 years now. Mm-hmm. She's amazing. She's a strong woman. She kicks butt. This past year, Megan Dunn came, her mom works for us at the store, and her sister now runs our paint department. Megan lives in Hawaii, and she came back and worked for us this last summer doing carpentry, and she was awesome. And now her sister Christine runs our paint department. She's doing a great job. And then I'm doing general contracting on the side, and I hired a company out of Rangeley. We have a house going up there. And the framing crew was led by a lady named Sarah, and they were the best framing crew I've ever seen.
Nice.
And there was two females. Sarah's husband worked on the crew. He was second in charge after her, and another gentleman. And they worked every day this winter, and it was a real winter.
Yeah.
I mean, she was tough, and she did a great job. So very awesome.
Yeah, I love that so much. You're talking about the different people that you work with and how amazing they are, which we love to hear. But I think that also speaks to relationships and support systems. How important is that for your mental health?
Working with family can be very challenging, and your wife. It's something we struggle with. The hardest part is, well, not the hardest part, but you're never going to see eye to eye. And it's just making sure at the end of the day, you put it behind you and you come together as a family. And I got to be honest, there's been times like we don't see eye to eye, and it is tough, but you find a way, and as we get older, it's talking about it more. Being who I am, I used to hold things in. I'm a Scorpio and I'm a little French Canadian, and that was two things I'm known for: holding it in, and then boom. So I'm really trying to work lately on, trying to get things out, trying to communicate. And I think the biggest thing in life is communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the things that have caused me stress or anxiety were communication, and when you actually get it off, and I was saying the other day, what you can't put a value on that weight when something's lifted off your chest or your shoulders.
Yeah.
And usually communication does that.
So tell me a little bit about your love for music. Did you talk about it on the show?
Yes, I love music. Music is probably the biggest mental health thing. Music and nature. To me, I don't care what day I'm having. I can always find the music I like and change my mood. There's very few things in life that are going to make you grateful every day or make you happy every day. And to me, it's been music. It's kind of my religion. It's every day. I put it on. Let's do it. And what I found in the last couple of years, I'd put it on, but I'd still be thinking about work. And now I try to really, if I'm in my truck, I put it on, just listen, just take myself to that point. What's the people in the crowd doing? Like, because I like old, I love the Grateful Dead. And like, what was it like in 1980 in that town? I try to picture that, and and all this, and like it just brings me like, what was the weather like in San Diego in the fall? And it gets my mind off from work, really.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing.
So what is the one thing that you would share with us that has changed in your life since the success of the show?
That's a good question. A lot's changed. We've been more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And more success does create different stresses, and that's been interesting. If you would have told me that we're going to be on TV for 12 years, I wouldn't be a millionaire by now. We've got a lot of assets, but you're still striving to make things work. And, it's weird, but the more we work, you get all these businesses, you go. And we've always been the mindset. I very rarely do I stop like, wow, we created this, so we own this. It's always about just the next step. How do we do this? How do we do that? And sometimes, it's at the woodshed, I stop, and when there's music there and there's people, just be like, wow, realize we built this. It does help. Not always just go. To try to stop and smell the roses, really. Stop and listen to the music.
Yeah. You have created such a unique sense of community, and Libby lives in your area down there, and it's something that's so unexpected, which I think is really cool. You're driving, all of a sudden there's this wonderful place. It's got wonderful music and great food,
great people,
and it's really created. I'm sure not everybody's happy about the influx of traffic and stuff to the area, but it's really a nice thing that you're providing for people, because your love of music, it's such a great way to come together as a community and de-stress.
It's really, and it's, as we've grown, I wanted that to be a music venue to start, and I've realized it wasn't the right spot, but we do have music 6 to 9, and once in a while we'll have a band, and we're in a good spot. The neighbors love us, the town loves us, and it's just a place to bring, even if there's one guy playing guitar, and to see people come there, and to see some of these Maine musicians pull their people in from all over the state, is really awesome. And we're part of the bigger thing I'm so proud of, is that what's going on in Central Maine. I never thought, when I graduated Gardner in 93, I'm like, we're out of here, never coming back. And all of we Cabin Masters, we moved out west, went skiing, and in our mid-30s, you realize, my family's probably my best friends, and Maine's pretty awesome. But I also believe as a young person, you have to travel to realize how lucky we are to have this area. But people are coming here now, too, and what they're doing in Augusta, Tobias and those guys downtown, and what they're doing in all these farm-to-table places, these pop-ups, Absalom. And, there's just a lot of energy here, and young people are coming here. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And, at the Woodshed, you do a lot of benefits for community agencies and organizations and bringing awareness to that. So I just wanted to say thank you for that because it's amazing. I see it as somebody in Winthrop, right down the road, that you're bringing awareness to so many different things, which is huge.
Well, like you said earlier, like having a platform is like this is pretty extraordinary, especially from, some people from Central Maine to be able to reach the world is pretty awesome. So and we're very grateful.
So, what would you want to share with like the general audience to say if you have one or two things that you could do every day to help you deal with your mental health? What would you suggest?
Yeah, and these are things that I still need to work on. I just turned 50. I don't know if I'm having my midlife crisis, but I'm kind of like self-reflecting, and I'm trying to let people speak more because I'm a talker. But the biggest thing is like find some time in the day to slow down. And I'm not good at that. And my wife's gonna watch this and laugh. But I'm saying that. Do as I say, not as I do, right? But you gotta just find some time. I'm seeing that even if it's a half an hour block just to reset. Whether it's in nature, music, both if you're lucky, throwing a dog if you're really lucky.
Yeah.
And try not to take things for granted and try to think about other people. That's the hardest thing. What is someone else going through? What is that other person thinking, So always do to others like you want done to yourself.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that you're still working on it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point for people too, especially when it comes to mental health, because, there is no one size fits all. And something that worked yesterday may not be what you want to tap into today. And so it is a journey, but it's a journey worth fighting for, worth working on. And we're all human at the end of the day. And so recognizing, hey, what is this person going through? Or are they actually angry? Or maybe are they hurting and it's coming out in a different way? And I think if people could think from that perspective, that maybe communication would be healthier between people.
And I think the stigmatism behind mental health has changed so much, in the last 20 years. And that has to do with the younger generations, like being outspoken and sticking up and like being adamant about certain things. And I think it's good. And I think older generations could take some, notes from them as well.
Yeah. It's very de-stressing for me to watch your show because I always look forward to see how you're going to enter and what approach. Because is that pretty much a Chase thing that he decides on the vehicle or the mode of transportation?
It's been a really fun thing.
Yeah, because you guys are always laughing.
Always
at that
something
part.
fun. And, that was, I think, a Chase and the production company thing. And the first 4 or 5 years, it was always something over the top. And then I think the next 3 or 4 years, before we signed with Magnolia, we were really just weren't sure where we were at. We were with DIY channel. So we kind of stopped doing all that fun stuff as much and stopped like doing the field trips and stuff. Excuse me. And, but now we're kind of back to that, trying to do new ways to come in and just fun and exciting ways. Yeah. I got a couple ideas. We were supposed to do, we had him talked into skydiving.
Wow.
All the insurances were paid, done, everything was signed off. Ashley refused to do it, but Chase and I were going to do it, and it was too windy.
Aww.
So I think that was a sign. No, we won't go skydiving.
I'd be on Ashley's side with that.
And then the other one I want to do is I want us all to get scuba gear on and just kind of walk out of the water. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, that's kind of cool.
I've been pushing for that one too.
That's kind of cool.
It doesn't really translate to the audio and stuff, so I don't know if that'll happen.
So when you're working with your family every day, how do you guys support each other? And especially if you're not agreeing. Do you kind of have this way you come together at the end of the day so you're not going home mad and that you don't bring it back to work the next day?
I think we all have it just built in that, we're not always going to agree. And usually we just call it, we can agree to disagree. And sometimes there's some topics we can't. And then we just, we may have a discussion. It might sometimes not be a little heated. And then we, go calm down. We'll talk in a couple of days, But 9% of the time, it's something we deal with on the right then, 99% of the time.
Poor Ashley, I always feel for her when she's picking out the paint colors. And Chase comes up and he's like, no way.
One thing that makes us work so well also, it's a double-edged sword. It seems like every one of our strengths and weaknesses are different, so that works. But that's also why sometimes we don't see eye to eye on stuff.
Yeah.
But, having a strong base in family and, and our businesses, we always find a way, to figure it out. Yeah. Communication.
Mm-hmm. So we have, we're coming to the tail end here. So, Lib, do you have one more question you want to ask?
Yeah, for those that are listening, if someone is feeling stuck, stressed, or burned out, what's one piece of advice that you would give for that person?
I would say don't internalize it. Don't think it's something wrong with you. Call someone or talk to someone. I had a great conversation with one of the film guys yesterday. I helped him on the side project. I said I was coming to talk to you guys, and we were talking about mental health. And he's like, I get it. He goes, because you can't always talk to your wife or your brother-in-law or your business partner about it. There's something you just need to vent about. And we were laughing like, yeah, maybe it should just be a vent hotline, But don't internalize it. And I'm guilty of that, big time. So that's something I'm working on. But I think getting it out and maybe telling I'm kind of hurting right now. I'm not understanding this. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing wrong with that.
So what is it like on the job site if someone is having a bad day? Do you guys lift each other up, support?
I think so. I think usually on the job site, it's so much going on that there's usually a lot of positive energy, especially when we're filming. When we're filming, there's a crafty table that's all the snacks and drinks you want, so that kind of helps. I get little things like that though. If you're having a bad day, just get a snack you like or something. Like treating yourself to something too. There's little tricks, to get through the day as well.
That's a really important thing to point out. Those little things people often forget. Getting water, having a snack, the fresh air, stepping outside, all of those things contribute to our mental health.
Yeah. Go to your car and just play your favorite song as loud as you can. I guarantee you're going to get out of that car in a better mood. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have time for one more question. All right. Let's see. Do you have a cabin or a place in Maine? You said your favorite lake, but is there a project that you worked on that you actually like, wow, I can't believe that we accomplished this?
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot that I can't believe we accomplished. And as the show's gotten more popular, we could stay closer to home and we could do more new builds. But I just love it when we challenge ourselves and fix these old cabins that are grandfathered in. And this, we've done a lot of community projects lately. I know this year we're trying to go back to save some of those old cabins. Yeah. Help some families out with it. Not that don't have the bigger budget. But there's so many like the game warden cabin on Miranda Cook was amazing. That thing was falling. It was raw. I remember putting my hand through it. Season 2 in Bunganuk down on the water. Like we were so new at it. We didn't know. I remember we struggled what to do right, what to do wrong, and now it's like one of my favorite episodes. And then Ashley and I were lucky enough this past year to get a cabin of our own on Cobbessy, and that's I think it's going to be a big part of my mental health. It's what's funny about it's a cabin that 10 years ago not me. It's off the grid on an island. But now over the last 10 years, I realized that's how that important that is to me. It's typical Maine. It's in the same town we live in. I live in West Gardner. Cabin's in West Gardner. I work in Monmouth. So it's halfway between work and home, but it's a million miles from reality in life. And it's just a place I'll be able to go and just relax and stare at the water and listen to music.
When I first moved here, I had no idea what a camp was. So I totally get it. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be far away.
No,
just a place to get away, reset, and kind of ground yourself again.
And that's something we always stress. A camp means something so different to everybody else. Yeah. A camp can be a $5,000 hunting shack in Western Maine. It can be a $500,000 ski house at Sugarloaf. It can be a place on the lake, or it could be a $5 million house on the ocean for some family. But it's a place where families go to make memories, forget about work, and spend time with friends and family.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up, you want to share with everybody when they can tune in? You guys are, a lot of people were asking about your time in Italy.
Yes.
And you said you were there for what, a month?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, almost 3 months.
Okay, so you totally renovated the house.
Totally renovated. It's done. I think you can find that on the streaming sites. I believe Hulu, Magnolia.
Okay.
It's funny, people ask me all the time, like, we don't even own cable ourselves. But yeah, we're on all the streaming sites. We're cranking away right now. We got finishing up our cabins that we did in the winter. We'll start a bunch more coming up. We have an amazing auction coming up. A tiny house we did on the 28th of April to benefit the Dempsey Center.
Nice.
Yeah, that's on our website. And Woodshed's cranking up. A lot of fun stuff coming there. We'll have a lot of events, a lot of fundraisers that can be seen on our on social media as
Okay.
well. So
Great.
yeah, thank you.
Well, we just want to thank you for coming on and being so open and honest about mental health and helping us to learn more about what makes you tick and learning a little bit more about the Maine Cabin Masters.
Well, thank you,
So thank
guys.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.